Broken English. So speaking about Minister Ziad Abu Ein, there are a lot of points that should be raised, and I would begin with the context. The context of the Palestinian activities that we're witnessing now in Jerusalem, in Al-Aqsa Mosque, and also around the security fence are all made deliberately in this very timing, because as the Palestinians understand and analyze the situation today in the Middle East, you can see that despite what we could hear from European Union and others in the West, including some in America, the Palestinian problem is not that important. It's actually negligible. I would call it negligible in comparison to what's happening to the Arab states surrounding us. And in this reality, mosques are burned and exploded, churches are burned, including prayers inside, women are raped, a lot of hundreds or thousands of people are killed and immigrating by force to other places like Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, etc. Everybody knows the situation. So speaking about the Palestinian problem as something that stands in the center of the Middle East problems is an awful mistake, and despite all this, some really believe that the solution of the Palestinian problem is something that could stop the violence around us, and Palestinians suffer from the fact that actually nobody really cares about what's happening between us. In this situation, they deliberately done several steps in order to increase the international community awareness to what's happening. And one of these things are what you could see in Jerusalem, the accident, the stabbing, all these terror activities. And Al-Aqsa was in the center, as if to say that Al-Aqsa is, as they use it as a slogan, Al-Aqsa is in danger. No, the Aqsa Mosque is not in danger. The Israeli police, and I can witness it by myself because I was a colonel in the Israeli police in Jerusalem, we do our best to keep Al-Aqsa Mosque safe. I can add to this three main points that the Israeli side has made, and as for my personal opinion, it was a bit of a mistake. One is the discussion about the nationality and Judaism of the state, because it has been already declared in the Covenant of Independence in 48. This is something that we should not deal with today. The other thing is increasing settlement activities in this timing. This should not be done in these very sensitive moments, because Arabs and Muslims are killing each other, and this is the right way to draw their attention towards us. And the last thing I think is the extremist Jews that wanted in this timing to pray in Al-Aqsa Mosque. So it helped Palestinians to draw attention to Jerusalem in the time we should not supply these causes to the other side. What's happening in the security fence is something that the Palestinians use for a long time. They claim that it is apartheid fence. By the time we do believe, and we have evidence to the fact that the security fence really make two parts of reality, part in which terrorists try to get into Israel and expose themselves inside the Israeli innocent civilian, and the part of the civilians who are now safe, and the security fence prevent them from reaching us. And the other meaning of the security fence is the fact that in a grosso modo, this security fence symbolizes the Israeli vision of the tomorrow to be the Palestinian state if they will consider all what Oslo Accord demands, including the recognition of Israel as a Jewish state, and a solution of three main settlement areas. So in general, Palestinians refuse to recognize Israel as Jewish state, as we could hear and read in Abu Mazen's interview a week ago in Akhbar al-Yom, the Egyptian daily Akhbar al-Yom. He said that he will never recognize Israel as a Jewish state because of two main reasons. One, that he has more than 1 million Palestinians inside Israel, and two, he has 6 million Palestinian refugees, and he heads them, and the 6 million Palestinians, including him, demand to go back to the Israel of the 48 because it is their right for return. From these acts, you can understand the Palestinians actually do not want to reach any agreement between us and them, and they want to create local problems that can reach the West and increase the support of the European Union and some American centers to support their demand to announce a Palestinian state, to declare a Palestinian state without committing their obligations towards the Israelis, as it has been, the two sides have been obliged to do in the Oslo Accord. So you can understand what happened in Turmus Aya at the borders and the security fence line. What happened to the minister is part of this deliberate artificial events that the Palestinians want to raise their problem in the context of the Middle Eastern Spring, in order to bold the Palestinian problem in a situation in which the Palestinian problem actually is negligible. This is the background of what we understand that the Palestinians are trying to do. And Mr. Ziad Abu Ein, a man who has been convicted of killing or putting explosive device in Tabaria and killing two Jewish teenagers in the 70s, he's been convicted. He ran away to the United States, has been delivered to the Israelis later on, and has been released later on in the Jibril deal. This fellow has been nominated to be a minister of, imagine, the security defense affairs. They call it the apartheid affairs. Speaking about apartheid, we should take also into account that any offer that has been made to some of the areas in Israel by Avigdor Lieberman, Minister Avigdor Lieberman, that offered them to be released of the occupied of the Israelis, of the apartheid of the Israelis. Any Palestinian citizen of Israel refused this. We offered them, the Israelis offered them to be included in the Palestinian state by their property, lands, whatever, and to draw the line western to their areas. They refused it, and even Abu Mazen declared lately, a week ago, that he refuses this. He wants Israel to be actually demolished by a demographic wave. That's the only thing you can understand by his insisting on the right of return of this horrible number that he chosen, the 6 million Palestinian refugees. This fellow, the president, so-called Mahmoud Abbas, he is well known as Holocaust denier, and the fact that he chosen 6 million people deliberately shows the trick of trying to mislead the world by using the number 6 million refugees, so the world will change the paradigm of 6 million Holocaust victims into 6 million Palestinian refugees. This is a trick that nobody has raised a voice against it, and I can understand that the European Union, who are trying all their efforts to find crimes in the Israelis' acts to defend themselves during the last operation in Gaza in order to show that the Israelis are much more evil than their fathers were. This is the efforts the European Union are trying to do, and you can see that mainly France and other European states are supporting the Palestinian initiative to bypass Israel, to bypass direct negotiations. And unfortunately, you could not hear John Kerry saying during the meeting in Rome yesterday, he didn't declare that they will not allow this to happen. And by this, actually the Palestinians encouraged themselves not to go into the direct conversation with Israel because they are promised by the French and others to get their state in any case during 2 years. Another effort they do, and I'll go back later on to the minister, they are trying to put us on the court of crimes in The Hague because they believe that by this they can prevent our ministers, our Israeli leaders to go outside and feel free. They want to put the idea of South Africa apartheid on Israel and to boycott us. So what you see is a part of the context. The event of Ziad Abu Ein is one piece of the chain of a general act in which Palestinians are trying to raise the problem of Palestinians as if it was in the center of the events of the Middle East, to mislead the world about the victims and about the refugees, and to create a situation in which Israel is the aggressor, Israel is the one who attacked, Israel is the one who killed deliberately a minister. Actually, the record of Ziad Abu Ein is a man who was very, very sick, and the autopsy that has been made to him, the post-mortem, shows that the man suffered from a very, very difficult and permanent heart problems. And what happened in that tension in which he deliberately went into a clash with the Israeli police and the Israeli army, this event in which he got into deliberately, knowing that he is not well, knowing that he suffered from heart attack, and the way he got into immediate clash and violent clash with the Israeli police has led to what happened to him later on. And they said that we intended to kill him. This is bullshit. Sorry for this non-protocolic word, because the cameras saw it all. Originally, you can see that the Palestinians lie in every junction they can. But fortunately, in this event, you could see on the cameras the clash and the way people raises sticks and hit the soldiers and the policemen, the Israeli policemen. You could see it by camera. And that event, in which he got to a direct fight with one of the Israeli soldiers by hands, the man sat down on the ground. He felt unwell, and an Israeli paramedic came to him to handle him. They didn't let her handle him or treat him, and they took him to an ambulance. And later on, the staff that the doctor's team that made the autopsy on the late minister had found out that he's really suffered from a lot of heart problems, and it has actually nothing to do. Of course, maybe the fight he had with the soldier, he raised hands, and I cannot even imagine a situation like this in America, in which in every incident like this, no citizen will raise his hands on policemen. Remember when a policeman asks you to introduce your driving license. What is the event? You raise your hand, you put there. Nobody even dare to strike the policeman or to have something violent against any servant of the law. So this event in which Ziad Abu Ein participated, and the way the Palestinian Authority tried to turn this event into a political revenge. They tried to say that we deliberately killed him, and the Fatah organization, and as usual, is inciting to take revenge. And we ordinarily hear two voices from Palestinians: one that calls for peace, and the other, on the ground, you can see incitement that they are threatening the Israelis of third intifada, of violence activities, etc., etc. So all these events, and including Jerusalem and the security fence and Al-Aqsa and all these terror activities, all is on the context of the Palestinian to achieve achievements without paying in anything that is needed. Even the recognition of the Israeli state as a Jewish state, they refuse to do it, and they say it obviously. We do believe that the Palestinians should get what they call the Palestinian refugees. Actually, by international law, the sons of those 600 people that ran away after Israel at the days of 1048, sons are not considered refugees. And if we take into account these 800,000 Jewish refugees, they came from Arab states, their sons actually are not considered refugees because they have been settled down here in Israel. So we understand very clearly that the Abu Mazen, who is called moderate, do not really intend to get into any peace. And it's strange that the American administration actually do not understand this very clear point, because maybe they speak very good English, but unfortunately not that good Arabic. Thank you.
Okay. More than 20 years I dedicated from my life to conduct research inside the Israeli security, most security, terrorists inside the Israeli prison, and speaking and meeting with terrorists, the leaders from Hamas organization, including Sheikh Ahmad Yassin, the founder of the Hamas, or the parliament member of Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Fatah, and others. I would like to give another thing about my background. I'm from Iraqi origin, Jewish Iraqi refugees from my family from Baghdad. I was born in Israel, but I understand deep from inside the culture, manners, and how to deal with those people. And it was very, very useful for me to conduct a research, first-hand research, face-to-face with those people because of that. What we see here now, right now, even with ISIS, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, you name it, I call this phenomenon as Shahada mania and Jihad tourism, which means Shahada, it's actually the declaration for self-sacrifice and also the promise to dedicate yourself to Allah. And mania, I combine those two words because what we see in their mindset, inside their minds, is obsessive way to achieve istishhad, self-sacrifice, and to be able to actually to rape and kill in the name of Allah, and to have this feeling of empowering that they can do everything and nobody can stop them. When I spoke with suicide bombers who failed, they told me, we can choose who will live and who will die. It's very empowering. Those marginalized people feel empowered. And behind mask, as we see with ISIS, they can do everything. I can tell you that the gap of values, the jealousy and the inferiority feeling and the rejection of the West, of this culture, it's unbridgeable gaps between those people to the culture in the West, and they feel like we are not looking for the future, we look for the past, and we'll go on the footsteps of the Prophet Muhammad and imitate what he did to achieve the great victory of his Islam. I think that the mindset of those people is emotionally detached. They call it Judas, something like a drug addict. It's a worm that's digging inside the mind. It's something very similar when a suicide bomber goes to the target. When he goes to the target, there is a dissociation, the same like a woman who raped and described the feeling that she didn't feel anything. She wasn't connected to her body. The same thing we see with suicide bombers, even those who told me who pressed the button, and we were lucky because the device failed. People who hide behind the mask, they don't have a feeling of guilt. They don't. They feel rage. They feel that they can do everything, and for them, terror is career, a lot of money, and promotion, and a feeling that they are very, very unique. And instead of being marginalized and not to be able to show you're manly, they find a way to express themselves and their even sexuality. That's something that in this society consider is like ebb, which means embarrassing, a shame. They can speak about sexuality, they can rape, and it's okay. They will get a fatwa, a religious verdict that everything is okay. So the hatred to the West is a common denominator for all of them, and it's something that gives them a sense of belonging and a sense of let's reject the rejectors and we'll do whatever we can. So if we're speaking about the individual, there is no personal psychopathology in the level of the individual, although we can find a lot of people who had borderline personality, but it's not a pathology. But I think that we can start thinking about, define this phenomenon of jihad, tourism, and shahada mania as collective pathology and difficulties to be able to solve problems and in a way that we know in the modern life. And the other thing, also to live their life here and right now without dreaming in paradise, that actually they hate the West, but at the same time they are thinking about living like in the West after life, that all that is forbidden in this world will be allowed in paradise, when you can have, as one guy, I just want to read something, 15-year-old boy, all is forbidden in this world, permitted in paradise. Paradise has everything, Allah, freedom, the Prophet Muhammad, 72 virgins, the shaheeds, and a lot of things, and beer and honey and things like that. So everything that he cannot get in this world, he will get in paradise. So in this life, if you cannot get something, go to paradise, and it's a very tangible idea for them. So this is something that we cannot stop actually. It's very difficult because they use the platform, the digital media, and we see it with ISIS in a very useful way. And those ideas have it like all over the world right now. And it's very, very difficult to fight these words, although not all the Muslims are terrorists, but we cannot ignore even today the slaughter in Pakistan with young children in high school, and yesterday in Australia, and before that in Canada, in America. And so for them, they feel like if we cannot join you, we will beat you and we'll fight you and we'll gain our honor. And it's a lot also about honor. Even the officer in Fort Hood, I think, the major, the psychiatrist who killed his actually soldiers from the same unit in Texas. This guy also, because he didn't want that people would think that he collaborate with the enemy, the West, with America, he did this act. I think I just want to finish with something that I think that today it's to be for a child that grew up in Gaza or in Syria or in Saudi Arabia or in Yemen or homegrown terrorists in the West. It's to be a shaheed or not to be. This is the fulfillment, this is the desire, and this is what they want. So political correctness has become a device for distorting the truth, and the West should not lose its human kindness. We must define this phenomena, put it and phrase it in a very, very precise way to be able to combat it, because we see here people who, for them, the message is to become altruist in this world and hedonist in the next world, in paradise. Thanks for listening. I think that you need to know the enemy. You need to define the enemy. Not every Muslim is the enemy. Not at all. And you cannot profiling because there is a problem to let's say you can, but there is a problem because there are homegrown terrorists. There are in Europe many Muslims who married Christian women who convert to Islam, and they use them and abuse them also to terror attack. You know, my book, The Smarter Bomb, I finished my book with a female suicide bomber, blonde smart bomb like Jihad Jane, that boarding on a plane with explosive tampons, sponged the explosive on her tampons. How you can stop such a woman? You cannot stop her. So it has to be much more clever security. And I think that it's not to check everybody, and everybody who come to Israel, you see that you don't see so many security at the airport, but there is a lot of security, many eyes, but it's like in a clever way. You need to know how to ask the right questions. You need to understand the culture from inside, to understand the language, to understand the codes, and I'm sure that Reuven will speak about the codes, about the religion, because sometimes it's something that can look for us, something that we cannot need to deal with. It could be something very huge. Let's say when you see a guy walking with a stick inside his pocket. For me, this stick is siwak. It's the toothbrush that the Prophet Muhammad used in the 7th century. And this is one of the signs to identify suicide bombers. I'm not sure that people in America knows that. I'm not sure about that. So there are many signs that you can get those people. You can identify them, but it's too late when you need to stop a suicide bomber when he walks to the target. We need to gather intelligence, also not just in technologies, but also human sources, and to have the connections with leaders of groups, to be involved more in activities, and to understand that this is a different culture, and not all of them want to be involved in the Western life. They have different manners, even to communicate with them. For me, I have a chapter in my book, how to approach those people. You need to know the culture, because if not, you make a lot of mistakes. They feel like offended, insulted, and this is, I think, the first thing that, especially when I hear what's happened with the CIA and how they interrogate those terrorists. Those terrorists are not racist, but there is much more sophisticated attitude to be able even to gather intelligence to stop the next terror attack. Reuven, can you add to this?
Yes, Anat emphasized on the point of view of how to profile individuals by several signs that one can understand that we are dealing with a terrorist actor in a development process. But I believe that before dealing with the individuals, we should understand the operational code of radical Islamism. And I believe that it become even easier these days because I remember myself and Anat having a lecture in Santa Monica about 10 years ago. And when I spoke about the total goal of radical Islamism to control and to lead the world, people stared at me and said, "Oh, it is something very imaginary. It's not real. This vision is not real. This is a theory." But now that we are watching ISIS and watching Jabhat al-Nusra, watching Hamas Islamic Emirate in Gaza, we understand that these all are pieces of a great puzzle, and my doctoral dissertation dealt with this. It is called the Radical Islamism Operational Code. One should understand the mechanism of this idea that aims to really to rule the world. And this operational code deals with imitating the winning formula of Muhammad, the prophet at the 7th century. They believed that if they imitate him perfectly, they would reach at the end of the day to fulfill this winning formula, and the more they imitate him for the real little details, the more they will succeed. So what we see in our environment, and the fact that some of the European Muslims in the enclaves of Europe who are going there fighting under the name of Allah and ISIS and coming back to the enclaves, these are the individuals who will go back to the enclaves and fulfill this message. But one of the main challenges to the West today is to understand that the Dawah activists who are calling themselves peaceful Dawah, those who preach for Islam, they say all we do is teaching people what Islam means. Actually, what they do in the mosques, they are teaching them not only what was there at that 7th century, but what are the lessons to be fulfilled. To a Western listening to these lectures is some kind of a legacy. For our ears, it might be interpreted as a legacy to be taught, a story. But it is not the story. These are sensitivities that the Western ear cannot tell, cannot understand. And the Dawah activists, those who preach in the mosques, are even more dangerous than the Mujahideen themselves, because they widespread these ideas all over Europe and the West. And the process of people getting into Islam is vast, and I believe that in America you can meet it in prison, in very poor societies, etc., etc., etc. It is very, very easy to recruit the people in a very, very difficult terms or conditions of the societies. They very easily penetrate. So the system imitates about 4 stages of Islam during its development towards power. They believe now that every emirate, such as the one we have nearby, Hamas, and the fact in Gaza Strip, and the fact that they might have been controlling the West Bank in terms that Abu Mazen threat us that he will cut the cooperation between the Israeli security forces and his. This is a fake because it is a condition for his resistance, for him to stay, to be. He cannot do this. And if he does, of course, Hamas will take power also in the West Bank. The same occurs in Jordan. ISIS getting into Jordan, and Jordan is in troubles. And we have a Turkey that's turned to Islamic sultanate, like they try to imitate the Ottoman Empire. Iran on the other hand, but all these processes are built on the same conception, the operational code of Islam. And the operational code of Islam is by stages imitate and getting the puzzle completed. And the enclaves in America and Europe are part of it. And that's why being threatened by these Islamic enclaves, you can see even the policy of the Europeans is changed against their own interests, such as the Israeli support that we should gain from them. On the contrary, they go against us. And it reminds me of the times of the Crusades, that the European states betrayed the Crusades, and Al-Din al-Ayyubi at the end of the day conquered Israel at the ancient times in the 11th century. So in any case, as a summary, I would say the profiling individual Muslims who are supposed to turn naturally after being exposed to incitement, they will turn to be radical activists. The challenge is not only by security means of observing those people in checkpoints, etc., and intelligence, etc. The challenge is to understand the process and who stays beyond this process. And those who stand beyond the process are those who priest to the process and pretend to be people of peace. Those who stand on the manbar, on the pump, on the stage, on the podium, and pretend to teach Islam, and by this and parallel to this, they incite for a radical Islamism and violence. But this is a question of understanding mentality, Islamic religion, and the messages beyond the words. This is very, very difficult, and I believe that the world has been changed into it after so long period that the West thought that it is not political correctness to say radical Islamism, Islamic violence, etc. Now, the explanation why is how comes that a lot of Muslims are not radicals, are not violent, is the fact that those preachers, those people of Dawah, not yet arrived to them. This is the main code, and our goal should be to prevent those people get into the minds and hearts of the ordinary Muslim community. This is a controversial point that you raised, a very, very complicated and smart question, I must admit. You know, in a situation in which you see hostile approach from Palestinian Authority in general and total refusal to get into a direct negotiation with Israel as they has been obliged to, you see that parallel to this increasing violence that we see in the streets and we see in the speeches and the attitude of the Palestinian leadership and communication towards Israel, this is a real question why Israel does insist on the arrival of money to support the Palestinian Authority. Yes, there is one level of declarations, one level of big disagreement and refusal to get into any result, and the other that might be even in contradiction to the first is the fact that the Israelis do cooperate with Palestinian Authority And we understand that the very existence of Palestinian Authority on one hand might one day lead to a peace agreement between the two. So for the time being, I believe that the Israelis do not want the PA to collapse. We believe that we should maintain the very existence of the PA because there is still a chance that we might have, that we may reach to an agreement. This is one point. The other one is the day-to-day relationship between the agencies, the one of the Palestinian Authority and the Israeli, for the sake of the two. And I can tell you that more that we enjoy this cooperation, the Palestinian Authority, which is threatened by Hamas organization, is helped by us. And and I can tell you as a proof that during the costly the last protective age, we managed to expose about 30 people, including ammunition and guns and arms, that planned to make a call against the Palestinian Authority, even during the last operation. So we, in any case, prefer the PA on Hamas. That's something very simple to define. We do not want Hamas to take power on the West Bank, and we do not want to handle the needs of the community there. So there are very many reasons why should we support the PA and not let it collapse. This is, in general, my understanding of the mutual interest between the two.
Actually, it's the same thing that we didn't cause the collapse of the Hamas in Gaza. You need to have the address to deal with the people, the civilians there. And Israel do not want to take care of all those people in the West Bank and in Gaza Strip. And so the authority, the PA authority, this is the address. They deal with all the education, actually the incitement, the health care, all the things. So if you take the budget, they will collapse, and actually the address will be Israel by itself. It's the same thing with the Gaza Strip, that Hamas stayed after this, even after this military operation, as they were in Gaza Strip, because we need to have address, and we don't want to have like so many organizations like Islamic Jihad, Ansar Bet al-Maghdad, and other organizations that you have in Gaza Strip, and there is no address. There will be chaos there. So although it's very difficult and we are very ambivalent, for Israel it's good to have the PA. And actually they have autonomy there in their territories. 30% of the territory in the West Bank ruled by the PA. And it's good for Israel not to deal with each one of the Palestinian citizens. And so this is actually the main idea.
Okay, this is also a very smart question, and you point out on one of the most stimulating questions we are now in Israel, to define who are the Palestinians inside Israel. Are they Israeli Arabs, as we used to think about them for so many years, or are they Palestinians as the increasing voices lately claim, including those voices coming from the Palestinian Authority? On practical way, each one of them insists on being an Israeli citizen because they enjoy all the advantages of being an Israeli citizen, including insurance, health care, and all these payments and treatments that every ordinary citizen enjoys from. This is on the practical level of a day-to-day life, and it supplies also the freedom of speaking, the freedom of election that allows them to send their representatives to the Knesset. In short, all the advantages of a democratic state. This is one thing. But deep in heart, as I could understand from speaking to very many friends of mine, there is still the unfinished business of what they call occupied Palestine and their own identification with their what they call the Palestinian brothers. They have for a long time and as a vision the dream of demolishing the state of Israel, and because they believe that these all lands belong to them and it was raped and stolen from them, and they believe that Israel should go back to the hands of Palestinians. And that's why you can see increasing voices claiming that we are Palestinians living in the Israeli state. They now make a combination that allows them to be Palestinians in the Israeli state. That's why they object any service, obviously not in the army, but even in national services such as hospitals, schools, etc., they object any kind.
For their community.
Even for their own communities, they object any expression of participating in the national effort, even if it comes to matters of their own national needs, community needs. This is on one hand. Being supported by Palestinian Authority and by indirect support of the European Union, that let them understand that by stages the dream will be fulfilled and come true, they do not have any reason to change their tensions to this increasing dream. Despite all this, we cannot say that in general the Arab community in Israel is a monolith. It is not a monolith. On one hand, you have the Christian Arabs that now began to understand, while they are observing what is the destiny of their brothers or of the other side of the borders in the Arab states, they are now victims of the Islamic movements. They believe and understand now that the most the safest place upon earth for them in the Middle East is the state of Israel. So in this case, put aside the part of what is called the Arab Christians that till last years considered themselves a part of a Palestinian community. There is a change in the process. This is one. Add to this the Druze, add to this a large part of the pie is Bedouins, Druze, and Arabs who do believe that they belong to Israel. The story is not yet crystallized. And as a result, you can see that Arabs still believe in the Israeli High Court. The Arabs still believe in the system. Arabs still go to elect to the Knesset. Arabs still keep on cursing Israel from the Knesset itself, like the member of Knesset, Hanin Zorbi and others. So they use democracy in Israel as a platform. Another point, and by this I'll end this answer, is the factor of Islamic movement in Israel. This is a branch of the Muslim Brothers, not yet armed, but planned to be. In the far history, there have been an attempt to gather armed, but some of these members were captured and put beyond bars. But today, we see the Islamic movement also divided between those in the south who are considered to be more moderate, and the southern, headed by Raed Salah, are more extremists. And this movement is part of the Hamas movement and Muslim Brothers. All are enemies of the West and Israel, and we face them. And imagine, in Egypt, they were took out of law. In Saudi Arabia, in Arab states of Gulf, the Muslim Brothers are out of law. But in Israel, they are still allowed, and this is actually one of the symbols of real democracy. We can live side by a movement who calls for the demolition of Israel inside Israel.
You know, just to end with something that one time, like a few months ago, I finished my lecture, and I asked an Arab journalist who listened to the lecture if he felt offended or something was wrong as a Muslim. And he told me, Anat, give me a break. Israel is the only safe place for Muslim right now in the Middle East. So, you know, they know that they are safe here, but at the same time they are very ambivalent because they feel like this dilemma is to identify with the Muslims in Gaza Strip in the middle of the operation, or the Gaza operation, the military operation that we have it, or to identify with Israel because they also got missiles on their houses. Not they live in Israel; they're part of the community.
Listen, I believe that even Saudi Arabia and Jordan and other states, despite the noises you could hear, they are sick and tired of the Palestinian problem. They all understand now, they are being reached to a graduate's understanding that actually Palestinian problem doesn't do anything to solve the problems of the Middle East. So in case of a veto, it will not disturb the real interests of Saudi Arabia, who is really threatened by Iran, and the moderate states like Egypt, Emirates, Saudi Arabia, who have an obvious, clear and strong interest to strike Iran, who are now actually threatened even by radicalism in Turkey. Do you think they believe that, of course, in a way or another, an American veto against the Palestinian attempt to bypass Israel will be in a way or another uncomfortable in the general context of the efforts to get a united front line against Iran and against radicalism. But in any case, the problem is much more complicated because, you see, if America explodes from the air, bomb ISIS in an indirect way, it helps the nexus of Iran, Shia Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, Hezbollah. So any step you make disturbs somebody. In a way or another, if you help this nexus, and when Israel bombed, claims to be bombing the ammunition and missiles a week ago in Syria, the regime said that we're helping ISIS. You know that everybody say that Saudi Arabia help ISIS, Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and on the same time Qatar, who pay ISIS, and Saudi pay ISIS, and Turkey help ISIS, and Turkey is part of NATO, and Qatar has American bases there, and Saudi Arabia is an ally of America. On the same time, they support ISIS, whom America bombs.
I think that if they want to solve this problem, the Palestinian problem, I think that the best way is to ask Lebanon to give them citizenship, to ask Syria, what's remained from Syria, all those places, to give them money, and just because of this chaos, to find a way to actually to let them establish as a full citizens in the places that they are there. Because in Gaza Strip, why they cannot build their houses? You saw the pictures from Gaza. They have big houses. There are no refugees there. Every refugee camp there, it's like more and more families that came to the same place. But I spoke with refugees how they got half of Dunam, each one of them. So to solve the problem, it's not in the UN. The UN, it's a very hypocrite organization, And I think that it wouldn't solve the problem if, let's assume that they will decide not to put the veto and to accept this declaration. I think that it's not such a bad idea. Okay, you have Gaza Strip as one entity, and you have part of the West Bank that you are there, and Israel is not have dispute with border with you. That's it. It's not about the aspiration to ruin the state of Israel. So it's very complicated, and I think that today it's the first candle of Hanukkah, and we need to see the light in every situation and the opportunity. So let's take this direction to try to see the light.
The story is that Arab leaders of the Islamic moderate states say that the Palestinian solution, the problem solution, is necessary. It's taxes they pay for the years of the American, but they do not really believe it. Imagine that Egypt, the sacrifice for the Palestinian cause, so many soldiers are now fighting Hamas in brutally, and the proportion of this problem vis-a-vis the other real serious problems in the Middle East made the claims of Palestinian solution so ridiculous. Everybody knows that's very easy, and that's why Saudis has offered to solve the problem by exchanging lands and basically be based on 67. It's very, very easy if the Palestinians would reach to an idea or an understanding that there's no way but negotiating. But I believe that the European giving them the illusion that this problem could be postponed and they can achieve more and more without paying the payment that should give for a peace treaty. What Anat suggested is very serious. The claim of refugees, which is not any longer relevant, because according to international law, a refugee cannot inherit to his son this status, and that's why there actually hardly any refugees in any case. But the sons of the refugees should be settled down in the state they are. The UN, UNRWA, this agency should be dismissed, should be sent back home, because it's a corrupted organization that help to internalize the problem instead of solving it. So one thing is to give them citizenship in the Arab states, as we did to our refugees coming from Arab states. We absorbed from Europe. We absorbed 800,000 refugees from Arab states. There is no reason why the Arab son of refugees should not be absorbed in the Arab state. This is the general and most important step to be done in order to settle this idea. But claiming all the time that the fact that the Palestinian case has not been solved is not serious. This is an excuse, and it is not the cause.